get this to work. All right, if you want to ask Darryl a question, now's the time.
Anybody got a question? How about right back there?
Couple of questions regarding the Futurista. And indeed, it is extremely rare, and unfortunately, my nephew got a hold of my only built example, and I've never seen it again for less than several $100s. But as far as the engineering, one of the things I noticed on that is it had a very unique tail light. Can you tell me something about that? Was it like a neon bar that wrapped around the underbelly, and how did that work? You had a fold-out headlight too.
That was actually a neon tube made by a company that makes neon lights in them days, or signs. And we had to use a transformer to convert the juice down to make it work. I used that for probably 2 or 3 seasons, and I started driving the car a lot, and I kept breaking that thing. And so I, at the end, went back and built a conduit, red 1/2-inch conduit, to look just like it, pointed to ends and everything, but it didn't light up. So,
is there any possibility that Monogram still has that mold someplace and maybe shoot that again? Because I mean, the collectors are still. I just found a built example this afternoon right now for almost $100 for builders.
the molds are still in existence on all of them, but like I say, they've changed hands. The company has about 3 times over the last 20, 30 years. And I've talked to numerous times about trying to re-release some. We did finally get the Big T re-released. I built a replica of the Big T. We gave the Big T away, of course, and I actually built a replica of it, and we re-released it in 2009 or something like that, the big scale. The rest of them, I haven't been able to manage to get them to do much. They did send the molds to Australia and to England to do the Predicta, which was actually put out by a different group over there, just what do you call knockoff in essence, you know, good. And so there were some of those put out, but it doesn't look too promising. I imagine the molds are pretty much obsolete compared to the engineering today. I mean, you know, and with the 3D printers they got, it just kind of eliminates all that real fast, you know. In fact, Mark is doing the Predicta model form right now to put out with the 3D printer, is that right? And so the Predicta will come back out as a model. He's also doing an 8 scale, is that right? Of it also, of the Predicta. So you will be able to see that back on the market again. Mark has done an unbelievable job on the Predicta period and the model car industry as far as it goes, all this. Museum, I want to congratulate Mark. You've done an unbelievable job on everything. I'm looking forward to seeing more of it as I'm here. It's the first chance I've got to get up here. But that's another question. Anybody?
Couple questions.
Okay.
Did you work much with Roger Harney when you did the Big T?
Did I what?
Did you work with Roger Harney at Monogram when you did the Big T?
That's a long story.
Yeah.
When I went to Monogram, Roger was in the engineering department as a draftsman. He did the drafting for the models. And he's a heck of a good draftsman, a good illustrator as such. Roger and I kind of bucked horns on the Big T because he was far into it when I got there. And I made a lot of changes on it, which he didn't necessarily agree with, but I put it up to date where I felt needed to be done. So over the years, Roger swore up and down that he did the whole thing. I had nothing to do with it, but that was partly true and partly untrue. So, but Roger's a great guy.
Well, Roger told me a story that he was really, really concerned because he designed the model kit, but he didn't know whether they could build it full scale.
Oh.
So that when you took to the point of building it full scale, he was sitting back in his office going, is this gonna work?
Yeah.
Is all this stuff gonna happen? So I was worried about that.
Actually, I changed some, even before that.
Yeah.
I changed some of the engineering on it to make it work.
Right.
Before I ever tried to build a big car.
Yeah, that's kind of the backstory on it that nobody
Yeah.
knows about. Yeah.
And Roger and I sit down and talked about that. And of course, before Roger died, not
Yeah,
long ago,
he
as you
was a
know.
couple years ago, yeah. He was a good friend.
So I can say anything I want to now. You can't. Roger had nothing to do with it.
Then I have a second question.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
What royalty did Monogram pay you on those first kits?
Pardon?
What royalty percentage did they pay you on the?
I got paid two different ways. I got a regular consultant fee annually for 6 years, and I got a penny on every cheap model and 10 cents on the other ones,
Yeah,
the
right.
8 scale, which amounted to quite a lot of money in them days, but still
Well,
nothing.
we paid Roth 2 cents a kit.
Yeah, okay. And, but the story was that I felt so good about getting to do that.
Oh, yeah.
Because it opened doors for me. I would have done it for nothing. I never told Jack and Bob that. And I'll throw another little story in there real quick. I got all kinds of stories to bore you with. When Jack called me up and said, Darryl, we want you to be our design consultant back in 61. And I had my shop there in Wichita, Kansas. And I didn't even have an office. All I had was an old 6-car garage and a little desk up in front. And Bob said, or Jack said, I'm bringing Bob down. We're going to fly into Wichita and come see your shop. This is right after they hired me. And I said, oh my God, these guys are coming down here expecting to see Boeing Airplane Company. And I got this little 6-car shop. So frantically, I built me an office. And put a desk in it and pictures up on the wall, and looked like a nice setup. And I did that just for that purpose. Went back to work building cars, but anyway.
Mr. Starbird, I grew up in Wichita.
It's all good.
A lot of these folks may not realize it, and you haven't really mentioned it, but you've always been a big supporter of the model car industry and the hobby. Every one of your car shows has had a model contest, and back when we were both younger, you judged those model car contests yourself, and I don't know if everybody realizes how important that has been to supporting not only your work with Monogram, but the hobby as a whole, the role that you've taken with the model car hobby.
Thank you, appreciate that. Thing I did mention, or forgot to mention about Monogram, I did tour the country for Monogram, even went to the World's Fair and all for them, and they toured me throughout shopping, hobby shops throughout the United States, and I made personal appearances all over for several years there. And so I did get out among the people, enjoyed every minute of it. Yes, sir.
For your bodies, do you have a preference on materials like sculpting and fiberglassing compared to metal, welding metal, and hammering and all that? Do you have a preference and why?
I'm definitely a metal man, no question about that. And I started my shop in 1954. General Motors had just brought out the first Corvette, fiberglass, first time I ever even heard of fiberglass. And I was doing everything in metal and have ever since. I even used lead instead of plastic fillers. I didn't even use a plastic filler until close to 1980. I still leaded everything and still did all the metal work. Metal finished almost everything because that's all I knew how to do really. And that's all I do today. I still have my shop and I just build still, like I said on there, I just build it for myself. But I still use the same techniques, old school. I don't have an English wheel, for instance. In 1954, when I started, I think the only body ever heard of an English wheel was an Englishman, because I sure the heck never heard of one. You know, so, and I still don't use an English wheel. But I'll tell you a quick story about that. Always got a story. When I went to do Monster Garage, I knew that the first thing they were going to do when I got out there was ask me to do something on the wheel. I'd never done a wheel in my life, an English wheel. So I went down to a friend of mine that lives close to where I do there in Oklahoma. And I spent about 45 minutes on his English wheel, 45 minutes. First time I'd ever used an English wheel. Well, when I got to Monster Garage, Jesse had the bad habit of showing up for about an hour and then he'd disappear. And then the rest of us, we had to work on the cars for 5 days, you know. And for some reason, everybody thought I was the English wheel expert. So every time they wanted something, Jesse could do a great job with English wheel. Every time we needed a piece on the car, Darryl, go make us that piece. I'd go over there on the English wheel and make it. Remember, I only had 45 minutes to practice, but I could do it perfect. I mean, not perfect, but I could make it work, you know. So anyway, anybody can do an English wheel with a little bit of practice.
That's true. That's really true. Yeah.
Okay?
What was the original inspiration for doing a bubble top on a car?
You know, I started out to be an aeronautical engineer. I went to college at Wichita University to be an aeronautical engineer. I actually worked at Boeing Airplane Company all the time I was going to university. I worked third shift and went to school in the daytime and worked third shift, which was 12:30 and 1 in the morning. And at that time, there was about 10 or 12 of us that wanted to be engineers, and Boeing needed engineering. So they would keep us on third shift. Third shift at that point was just a makeup shift whenever something was behind. So they would move us, and I went into the foundry, sheet metal, electrical, rivets, machine shop, all 6, 8 weeks at a time, or months at a time, all the time I was going to college. Anyway, all the time I was doing that, I'm saying, I'm gonna be an engineer. Why in the heck do I need to do all this junk, you know? Well, long story, I've used every bit of that in my career ever since. But to answer your question, that's really where I started. I loved airplanes, I loved the design of them and the aerodynamics of them. And my dad wanted me to be an engineer, of course. I dropped out after 100 hours and started my shop up. Dad had a heart attack, because he worked at Boeing for 40 years as a tool maker. So, but about 10 years later, he said, Darryl, you might have made the right decision. Yes, sir.
What can you tell us about the Cosmo Ray?
The Cosmo Ray. Bobby Greenway out of Blackwell, Oklahoma, brought the Cosmo Ray to me in 1963, a brand new Cosmo Ray. I mean, brand new Corvette. And he had just inherited a bunch of money. His father, or his granddad, owned a large ranch right outside of Blackwell, cattle and everything, and had a lot of money when he died. He left it all to Bobby Greenway when he turned 21. But he left his father in, what do you call it, to take care of him until he turned, he's 16 when he died. He couldn't do nothing really on his own until he turned 21. But his father was into cars too, and they bought that Corvette in '63 and brought it right to me, and didn't really say anything to do, just said, Darryl, I want a car completely different. And I built the Cosmo Ray. And in the meantime, they took it to California and they won or when they got it built, they won several awards, the Grand National Roadster Show, the show in LA, I can't think what they call it anymore. Anyway, big shows out there. And Barris saw it, George, and he actually bought the car from Bobby Greenway. And he took it to his shop at that point and painted it. It was orange when I built it, and it was in the magazine orange, and under my name, of course. And he put a pearl orange on it with pearl accents, put some aluminum bumpers on it, which I didn't have on it, and put stick-on walnut, or what I'm going to call it, on it, over the band that I didn't have on it.
Wood grain.
Wood grain. Thank you.
And of course his badges.
And said George Barris creation, of course. And the worst part about it, we had a nice sign made that he used, and he just turned the sign over and did Barris on the back side of it. He turned the sign back over and said Starbird. But anyway, another story. Every time I saw George thereafter, I said, that's the best car you ever built. So, payback.
Is there a story behind that?
Story
kit?
behind everything.
Yeah, but the Cosmo Ray was released as a kit by MPC,
Okay.
and it never mentioned you as the builder, creator.
That's right.
Uh,
Barris actually sold that to him
Is that how?
in that condition. Yeah, he actually owned it and owned the rights to it because when he sold it, or Bobby sold it, George bought the rights to it too, and he sold it to MPC. Left me out of it completely. And another thing that happened, Barris put out a book, and many of you may have bought it later. In the very front opening of it, like this, double page, is the Cosmo Ray. His car.
Yeah,
Anyway.
that's the best way to put it in that.
So what else is new?
All right,
One
sorry,
more.
I don't want to cut this loose. Yeah, we'll do one more.
How hot does it get inside of the bubble top?
Pardon?
How hot does it get inside of the bubble top?
Damn hot. When the sun's out, you're in trouble. Beautiful car at night and on cloudy days. I do air conditioning and I've tried everything in the world, tinted bubbles and everything to help that, and it helps. But still on a very hot day, it gets mighty hot in them. We, for instance, the Fantabula, which is a 58 Chevy I put a bubble top on, which some of you probably saw, never made a model of it. But Jerry Titus and I drove it from Wichita to Indianapolis that year with a bubble top and a stick steering. And the rest of the story, there's always the rest of the story. And on the way up there, we drove on at night because what you just said, it was hot in the daytime. In the middle of the night, we took out and we got about 500, it was about 1,000 miles up there, Indianapolis from where we were at. And it was an NHRA national show up there along with the drags. And we got about 100 miles out of Wichita, or maybe 200 on our way there, and the rear wheel come off the car. Well, Jerry Titus at that time, Jerry's KKOA president, many of you may or may not know that, but he worked for me at that time. He forgot to put the car on the ground and tighten the lugs up. He tightened them up with it jacked up, of course. We took off without checking them. I never thought nothing about it. We lost the wheel. The rest of the story, Carcraft magazine did a cover shot on it while we were up there. And when that wheel come off, it came out back over the back wheel and caved the quarter up like this behind the wheel. If you look close on the cover, that quarter's pushed up because we shot it at the same time. The other side is the quarter's right, but that side's got where the wheel come out. There's always the rest of the story. But we did get there, and we did win the big award that year in Indianapolis with the car.
Can I ask you one more?
Do you have any plans to build any more bubble tops?
Am I doing one?
Do you have any plans to build another bubble top?
Well, you know, I just finished one, a 61 T-Bird. It's going to be coming out in the magazine here before long. I actually finished it in February of last year, and it's a full bubble top. And then I built the 2 years before that, I built the bubble topped Barone, Cadillac Barone 57, a bubble top. And unfortunately, the magazines don't feel that my type cars fit their format right now. So I don't get a lot of publicity like we used to, because they want street rods and rat rods, you name it, everything but bubble top cars, you know. So we don't get all that national publicity we used to get. And, one more. Okay.
Can I ask you, you've got a lot of creative names, Mr. Starbird, for your cars. I wonder what was behind the name of the Predicta?
Predicta.
What'd you call it? Just
You notice they all ended in an A from then on. Well, my beautiful wife sitting there, father, just bought, when I was in high school, just out of high school, we're still in high school, bought a Predicta television set.
We were in high school.
Huh?
We were married.
Well, we were married early in life. Bought a Predicta television set. I don't know if any of you ever saw them or not, but they're round, set on a pedestal. Most beautiful thing I ever saw. I said, my car is going to be called a Predicta. That's the best name I ever heard. That's where the name comes from. From then on, it was a forecast of the Fantabula, you name it. They all had an A after it. So I didn't name my kids after it. I should have. I was watching Paul Anka the other night. He named all of his girls with an A. Alicia, A, all the way down. 4 girls with an A. Before, not after, anyway. So I thought at that time I should have used that in my car. By the way, I had 4 kids, 12 grandkids, 18 great-grandkids, 14 great-grandkids. So I've been very productive as well as going. Okay.